Welcome back. Hey, Dakota. Good to see you again.
Hi, Suresh.
Yeah. So I know we both were super busy last week with SaaStr conference, and luckily we were there, part of it, meeting people in person. So from that, there are many topics that we definitely heard, and one of them being, I think, a lot of optimism in the air on what's happening right now, and then how the Q3 and Q4 of this year and the Q1 and later is going to be in the next year. That's number one, especially I think what we've all seen. Number two, definitely a lot of great hype, at the same time discussion about the Gen AI. I think that's the AI startups. Gen AI is the second thing that we've heard a lot. And the third really is the angle of multi-product companies that a lot of them are coming through. And today, what I thought is probably, Dakota, you and I can discuss a little bit on what trends are really specific to a lot of growth and revenue teams in the organizations, and then probably just bring some insights, right? So with that, I think probably where I want to start with is, I know you went and met with a lot of revenue leaders as part of SaaStr. What's your kind of takeaways? And can you talk about also some of the good discussions that you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. So SaaStr was wonderful. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You are definitely correct. I think getting out and having real conversations, real world environments. I know the further we get away from the pandemic and shutdowns and just exclusive remote work, I think the better. I think that the direct interaction is definitely enjoyable, and so that's something that I thoroughly enjoyed at SaaStr. Now, to hit on one of your points, some of the topics conversations that I had, definitely a lot of optimism. The further we get away from Q1, Q2, 2023, the more we get into 23, and then as we approach Q4, seems like there is that optimism. Seems like there's a little bit of an acceleration in the market, more businesses looking to open up their pocketbooks and look at ways that they can themselves be successful as they get further into 2023 and then as they prepare for 2024. One of those things, optimism around hiring, building out sales teams. And that's something that even we're a part of. We've been focusing on that, bringing on new team members as a part of our sales team, something that I've been specifically focused on. And so that's definitely something I think that I was getting a feeling from SaaStr is seeing that, hearing that, which is obviously a really great thing for us to see in the market. And for a lot of these organizations that are looking to grow and really go, maybe hit their targets, go beyond their targets, and really prepare for hopefully a killer 2024. It's also going to mention there's a lot of topics around different stages in the funnel and where should you focus, and from a sales leader's perspective, and do you focus top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel? And I don't necessarily think that there's one right answer. Of course, I think you should, as a sales leader, you want to focus everywhere. But when you think of, can I do today? And there was a lot of talk around focusing on top of funnel. That seems to be one of maybe a little bit of an easier, when you're thinking of mechanisms that can kind of get things going a little bit faster as there's an acceleration. That's an area that you can put a little bit of focus and get pretty great response and rewards from by focusing in that area. And so I do think, though, as you think about Q3 as a sales leader, as we approach the end of Q3, and then we think about Q4 and end of year results, I think it is focusing on bottom of funnel becomes that kind of thing that you want to focus on the most. How healthy is our pipeline, and how well are we able to help our prospects, and getting that feedback and understanding where are we sitting. And so I think it is one of those focuses that I like is don't lose focus on that top of funnel. Is make sure that's healthy and working and there's good optimism there, and that we are being consistent, hitting that every single day. What do we want to do to be ultra consistent to ensure that we have that really strong top of funnel production to really power us with that mid and bottom funnel production that we really need in order to hit those numbers at the end of 2023.
Yeah.
So those were some topics that I definitely heard a lot about, and be curious to see if you shared with that or if you had a different perspective.
Yeah. So for me, I think the additional points, I think you covered. The first one is about the hiring aspect of it. So one of the things that I was particularly talking to a lot of founders, I think the sentiment was that last year, a lot of people may not realize from the quarters point of view, but then the Q3 of last year is really when a lot of that economic slowness and then the VCs clawing back the new investments and everything came in, and which basically meant there was definitely a lot of, unfortunately, layoffs that happened. And it really took probably couple of quarters for everybody to realize, oh my goodness, what's happening? What should I do? And what's my runway? And how should I generate the revenue and everything? But there are two specific things that happened because of that. Number one, I think everybody tried to look into what is the best way that they can utilize their teams, including the sales teams. And for us, specifically focusing on the sales teams, one of the things that everybody talked about was, yes, I think to your point, the top of the line is super important for us. But at the same time, if let's say previously all the VCs, and then I think there is a particular mindset that, oh, you know what, you need to grow at any cost, and then which means it doesn't really matter. Oh, you want 10 SDRs, no problem, go with it. 50 SDRs, go with it. But now what we are trying to do is how can we really generate more efficiency out of the people that we have, which means, sure, you may have lesser top of the line now, but how do we really focus on each and every conversion rate of the funnels that you have? And that's really where I guess a lot of efficiency came in for many. And that's one part of it. It is even harder at this point of time because some of them, even if you want to bring them back, they probably are employed somewhere else, and they may not even want to come back to this company. So the idea of how do we recruit good salespeople, and then the Q3 and Q4 are definitely things that we are looking to grow. If so, how fast can we make these new people be productive? I think that's definitely there as top of mind for everyone, because now it's no more the case of, oh, yeah, that's okay, no, I can wait for next 1 year to really bring in the revenue. But people are saying, and then especially the investors' point of view and even the runway, you may not really have a lot of runway if you don't generate the revenue today, right? And to generate the revenue today, how fast can your salespeople come in and start working through the pipeline and then confidently go and sell? And that's definitely there as top of the mind for many sales leaders as well as the founders, is really what I thought. That goes back to, I think, both of the points that you talked about, which is the hiring aspect and the whole of the pipeline, fixing the pipeline basically is what I think everybody is talking through.
Yeah, and I would definitely resonate on that, because you're just talking about how can you take your Salesforce and make them more effective, and what's the right way to do that. And we talk a lot about the experience. Recruiting great salespeople is difficult. It's a process, and for a sales leader, it is something that is always front of mind. And if you're not always recruiting, then you're more than likely behind in finding great talent. But it's not just finding, it's allowing them to have a great experience, because the last thing you want is to bring in that right person, give them a bad experience, and then ultimately not be set up to be successful. More than likely going to churn and move on, which has an even greater cost on your organization. So really understanding what is it that they need to be successful, really equipping and having that process down so that they have that great experience and are set up for success. I also did hear about things like sales enablement tools, a little bit of a consolidation, the idea of organizations looking at some of the more expensive, top-heavy solutions that have a higher price tag, kind of getting on the chopping block. But at the same time, how do you continue to have similar or same level of effectiveness out of the organization? I think that's what I typically focus on is, does your sales organization understand what you're doing with these different tools? It's one thing to say, okay, this is how you use this one tool. It's another thing to have an understanding of how all the tools work together and towards that cohesive strategy and process, and make that very clear and have transparency with your sales team, your individual contributors, so that they are empowered to properly use those tools to be effective and really perform mid or bottom of funnel, as you mentioned, because that can be so important at this time of year.
Yeah, I think the one that you talked about, the whole of the consolidation, I think really comes in two different flavors, right? I think that's what Jason Lemkin was talking about, the whole of the software recession, because at the end of the day, with the whole pandemic growth, everybody just bought in a lot of tools in general. And then on the top of it, we are like, okay, now that I have these 10, 15 tools, everything does one thing really well. And I'm probably writing a lot of dollar amount for the multi-million dollar or multi-year contracts that we have. And I think that's really where all the teams and then along with the sales leaders are really looking and saying, what is it that I really need at this point of time? And then what can I probably get rid of? And that's definitely one of the sticky topic that a lot of leaders are talking about. For me, the one thing that is very interesting was the emergence of sales agencies in some of these conferences these days, because some of these sales agencies, just to be clear, these are the agencies who actually recruit SDRs, BDRs, even sales executives, and then sometimes even actually help some of these companies to actually train their salespeople inside as an org. So it looks like many of them existed in the past couple of decades, but then now for the first time ever, there are some sales agencies who actually are exhibiting in these conferences. So that probably gave me one of the other insight, which is at this point of time, because everybody wants to generate the revenue, the top of the line is very important. And sometimes you really don't have the budget to actually have a full-time employee with you. If so, then I think naturally a lot of companies are probably aligned towards saying we want to work with these sales agencies, take the help of them, grow the revenue, whether it is about the top of the line or appointment setting or doing the demos or whatever. I'm sure there are a range of services that they provide, and then get to the next level. So that's one of my own, I would say, revelation from SaaStr, where a lot of sales agencies are actually providing a lot of great services for the startups in general, right? And for us, especially as sales table, that is very important for us to think through all these changes, because for the customers that we serve, especially in the SMBs and the mid market, a lot of customers actually come to us asking for, hey, you know what? I don't have a big sales team. Can you give us some help on providing those processes and then bringing in the SDRs, BDRs? And that's really where we typically try to partner with the agencies so that everybody who has the right set of skills are the ones who is doing the right job. So from that, we're always definitely looking for the right partners for us in our audience. If there are agencies who are willing to, who really has need that software partnerships, we would love to talk to you more on that for sure. Are there any other things that you saw, Dakota, in general on the sales side of it?
Yes, definitely a lot of conversation. And you mentioned earlier Gen AI and its kind of infusion or augmentation for sales. There's a lot of great tools, new startups that are focusing on Gen AI. I heard some conversations about sales co-pilots and infusion of AI and how that's working together. And I would definitely say this even goes along with those agencies that you're talking about, where a lot of businesses really haven't fully understood how to leverage AI properly within their own organization. So maybe they're leaning on these sales agencies that have a little bit more experience or a little bit more ability to test things out across many different organizations and see what's working. And that's a great start because it can give you a good understanding of maybe how you can bring that in-house and then deploy it with as you grow your own team. So I definitely think and understand that. I also think as a lot of these tools become more available for individuals, individual contributors, sales team members that maybe don't have to wait for their organization to give them the tool, roll it out for the whole organization, they're able to actually take advantage of it directly. Things like ChatGPT is obviously the easy one to come up with there. But I see that where maybe I had many conversations that were where AI really hadn't been really applied internally as an organizational tool. And so a lot of individuals are having to figure that out on their own. So what does that kind of look like, the future of Gen AI in sales, and how organizations figure out how to use that tool to really drive effectiveness? We talk about consolidation of tools, but it's, how do we make the individual tools we already have more effective and actually be used in a way that allows individuals to be more successful in augmenting their own capabilities and resources that they have at their disposal.
Yeah. So the Gen AI is a very interesting topic. Again, one of the things I think you and I talked about, which is a lot of SDRs and the actual salespeople are very appreciative of the feature that we recently released about how do we really get the real-time answers using, of course, the AI technology, right? One of the things that I realized was Gen AI, of course, I think as a technology, we can talk about it, but unless we actually keep that in the context of the problem that our customers are facing, I'm sure, I think nobody cares about what is the technology behind, but as long as it is working and then it is generating the value from them. And that's exactly where the other feature that we talked about, the sales assist from Sales Table, that's where people said, oh, you know what? If there is a bot that can help me with providing some answers about the scripting of how should I talk to a prospect, or hey, I'm thinking about this pricing, what is the maximum discount that we can do? And because all these are documented everywhere, but it is so difficult for salespeople to actually go dig through the documents and find that right one information, right? Which is really what we keep talking about, the needle in the haystack. So that's really where if AI or any technology can actually bring that insight to them, that's the best thing. And that's one of the things that I'm sure you and I realized, Dakota, as to say, as long as I think we keep the problem in the context and then provide a solution, our customers are really appreciative of that.
Right. Yeah. And that's such a benefit to both the individual sales contributors and the sales leader, because a lot of times if that salesperson is searching for that information, they either can't find it, or it takes them a long time to find it, or they don't know really maybe how to contextualize it in a way that sort of answers their question. And so what do? They turn to their sales leader to help them with that, pull them in. And now you have sales. And I'm not saying that's not important. It's always important to have that. But if those are things, if some of those questions are maybe can be answered through like a generative AI tool that can contextualize it in a way that is able to reference and have been trained on your own internal understanding of your go-to-market and who you are and what is your product all about, and what's the value that you're delivering, when it can actually reference that in seconds and deliver that context around what that salesperson is asking, then it allows the sales leader, when they're stepping in, to be far more on point, really be able to be a part of the most important topics, which really allows them to leverage their availability across the organization more effectively as well, which can only have a positive impact across the sales organization.
Absolutely. Again, I think thanks a lot for this great discussion. I think really for me, the takeaways are the economy is coming back, and I think the opportunities are really for us to execute for all the companies, by the way. And again, if you are one of the sales leaders who are out there and bringing in a lot of salespeople, definitely do think about how do you best enable them to actually go out there, be successful, and be confident when they're selling. Keep selling, keep generating the revenue. Until next time.